Okay, hi. So today we're doing the reading goals tag. This was made by Rosie Cockshut. I will link her video and her description below, and she was kind enough to tag me, so thank you, Rosie. I really enjoyed watching the video. I've watched a few others already. I just like the reflection on the concepts of goals and intentions as opposed to just the goals themselves, because like everything, everyone kind of thinks about them in a different way. And so I guess now you'll figure out how I feel. The first thing to do is tag people, but I am horrible at tagging people in tags. I feel like guilty telling someone like you should do this tag. So we'll just say that like if you're watching this and you want to do it, consider yourself tagged. If you don't have a channel, but you still want to answer the questions, tell me about them in the comments below. I always love reading people's comments and thoughts and perspectives and how they differ or how they're similar. So yeah, let's get started. The first question, do you set reading goals? Why or why not? So I do want to just say that this whole video is really going to just be about reading and reading goals, because it is much different than goal setting I do in the workplace and goal setting I do in other parts of my life, which basically there aren't any. In other parts of my life, I make goals at work. One of those is just to be able to get through the day. It's fine. We're not talking about that. To answer the question, I make reading goals. These are a bit more like reading intentions. I think I'll get into that a little bit more in future questions. But I think I want to start by just kind of talking about why I read. And I've been wanting to actually make a video about this, but I don't know, I just haven't. So people read for all different reasons, and they're all valid. Why I specifically read is that I enjoy immersing myself in a universe. It's my favorite media to consume. I don't really watch movies. I don't really watch many TV shows. I don't really play video games, although I have been playing a lot of Stardew Valley lately. But it's like a phase thing, whereas reading is my continuous form of media consumption. So that's why I read. I enjoy it as a form of consuming. I don't necessarily read to find my favorite book, and I don't necessarily read to like every book I read. I read largely to experience the world through other lenses. And that is something that has happened through time. And I think I'll just put a pin in that because we'll probably come back to it in future questions. As you can tell, I don't plan. Next question. Are your goals things that you absolutely aim to complete or more general themes you want to focus on? So definitely the latter. I am not like I must read this book or that book or do this thing or that thing. It's a lot broader. It gives me a lot more room to breathe within the goal or within the intention. I think I'm going to call them intentions moving forward, because the concept of goal is much more concrete in our cultural idea of what a goal is, whereas I'm more talking about like bringing intentionality into my reading, having some intention in the books that I buy, in the books that I accumulate, and in the books that I actually read. Next question. When in the year do you set goals? So I think like most people, it's just easy to do it at the beginning of the year because it's like kind of an everyone refresh point. At least in the Western world, we celebrate January 1st is the new year. But aside from that, like I set the goals then, but I kind of, especially since moving to a place that has like more intense seasons, and it's not really intentional, I kind of do like a spring cleaning type thing every quarter, like around the season change. It's kind of a reset button to me. So if I fall into slumps, I kind of like, the seasons are changing, I kind of like see that as like a way to rejuvenate myself and kind of pull myself out of something. Or if something's not really working, it's kind of like a refresh thing. So I think I was watching Shelly's video where she was talking about somehow some of her goals are really just in her head. And for me, they're not real until I actually like vocalize them in some capacity or like write them down and like turn them into an intention. And typically, before I had a channel, my poor partner just had to listen to me like talk about my reading goals, and he's like pretending to care. It's very sweet. Next question. Do you have any long-standing goals that you aim for every year? If yes, what are they? So I think that this kind of goes around with like why I read and my intentionality with reading. So in the past few years, not as a child. As a child, it was just like imagination and like reading for plot. And kind of reading to find myself. My general focus, I guess I have two, which kind of, if you watch both my goals videos, which actually the first video I ever posted on my channel was a goals video for 2020, 2021, who am I? 2021. One of them is to keep my physical TBR manageable. My Goodreads TBR can be massive. Like, I don't care. It can be thousands and thousands of books. It's kind of just where if I hear about a book that sparks any sort of interest, I just tag it. Physically, I don't want to own a lot of books that I have unread because it becomes overwhelming for me. So I also live in an apartment, so I eventually will move and I will need to move things with me. So I don't want to just like kind of haphazardly acquire books. So I do have some intentionality around not buying too many books so that I'm constantly accumulating and growing my TBR physically, and also with that being a bit more intentional in the books I pick up to buy. Like, do I need to buy the book? Can I just get it from the library? That type of thing. The other sort of just intentionality I have with my reading is reading more globally. So not reading and not reading my own perspective all the time. So I have been trying to grow the number of books I read by non-white authors, by female authors, by gender non-conforming authors, by authors that are in translation, translating things into English, authors around the world. I find that even if I didn't necessarily enjoy the book, I gained something else from the book, so it's not like a net loss. So I kind of always feel like I'm gaining more and more from the books I read. I don't want this to come off wrong, because it's not like I expect an author to teach me something, but I do get taught as I read fiction and nonfiction. And I find that I've found that as I have chosen or made the intention of reading more globally, the plots of books are just more diverse because I'm reading from a bunch of different cultures that have different practices, different thought processes, different customs, different languages. Like, there's just so much different that the plots of books can feel very fresh, because it's something I've never seen before from my Western gaze. So that was a very long answer. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, but I do just want to say that this is my overarching goal of what my reading looks like, and it kind of morphs from year to year. Like, I kind of like take an intention, kind of build my reading into that place, feel good about the place I'm sitting in, and then say, okay, but what am I missing? I feel like I'm missing this. And it kind of happens naturally. It's like an organic, like, maybe I want to start getting into this. What type of goals have been the most successful by whatever metric you chose in the past? Okay, so the goals that are most successful are the vague ones. It's not that I'm going to get my physical TBR to this number. It's that I want my physical TBR to be manageable. I don't want it to grow. It's not that I need 67% of my reading to be from BIPOC authors. It's that I want a higher percentage of my reading to be from non-white authors. And it's really just a wording thing, but not having a number in mind really helps the goal just be kind of vague and kind of like more of an intention. It just exists out in the world for me, and I kind of read towards it but I don't have to get to a certain thing. Then going into the next question, what type of goals have not gone to plan? What went wrong? It's the very specific ones. So doing a year-long reading challenge. I love the concept of like month-long intentional reading. Like I'm going to read, like celebrate Black History Month by reading books by all Black authors, and stuff like that, where it's like a shorter period of time, but not too short, and it kind of gives intentionality to my reading in a smaller scope of time. But if I'm stuck with a list, like of prompts, so I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Prompts don't work for me. The Reading Women Challenge, love the concept, but I don't want to have to complete every single prompt because I don't want to have to search for books that match that prompt and then have to read that specific book. Okay, next question. Do you change your goals based on how the last reading year has gone? So yes, that kind of like just speaks to like the organic nature of the intentionality. So I had a goal in 2021 to read more diversely, and that meant read more books in translation, and it meant read more books by Indigenous authors for me. And I was successful in both of those things. So then moving into this year, I don't need to set those as goals anymore because like I've brought it into my reading life. I actively pick books up in translation, and I actively pick up books by Indigenous authors. So I don't have to be as intentional with it anymore because it is just a part of my reading. It's part of my TBR. But now I want to read more classics from around the world. So I wasn't really doing that as much. I had a few here and there, but now it's like I'm trying to incorporate that. And once I do, then like, organically the goal will change. So yeah, it's kind of just like, I don't really even have like an end goal of where I want to get to. It's more of just like the reading journey organically changing and developing based on my thoughts and feelings and like what reading means to me. Next question, do you track your reading goals? If so, how? So yes, I have a spreadsheet where I track every book I read, and I make a new one every year, and I put a lot of data in for each of the books, and it kind of just tracks itself. So I can just see year to year if those percentages have changed. I also have like a spreadsheet of every book I own. I love data and I love spreadsheets, which is funny seeing as all of my goals are around not putting specific numbers or specific data around them. But that's fine. So I have like a spreadsheet where I basically like have a library system of every book I own. I track when I brought it in, how much it cost me, some of the demographics about the author. Because of that like intentionality I just have a way of like seeing if I'm actually following my intentions. And then I also track when I read them and if I donated them after I read them, or if I donated them and didn't read them, etc. I could make a whole video on that, but I feel like it wouldn't be that interesting to anyone but me. Because, with reading, people say that there's 2 hobbies. I actually think there's 3 hobbies. There is the actual act of reading books. There is the act of buying books. And then there's the third, more elusive one of tracking your books. Now, last question, has any of this changed a lot over the course of your reading life? Absolutely. I did not have these goals years ago. So I started actually tracking my reading in a bit more concrete of a way in 2019 when I started reading, maybe 2018. 2018 or 2019. And previous to that, as a child, absolutely not. I was literally just reading to read. It was just my favorite hobby. And it was like a way to be at daycare and have something to do when none of your friends went to daycare and you didn't want to befriend any of the other kids because you were snobby. So, there was no goals when I was a child. I did keep a list and keep track each school year of every book I read. I don't have any of those anymore. They were on paper. And yeah, I had no goals. And now it's just like a big part. Reading's a massive part of my life. It's one of my biggest hobbies. And I like to put some intentionality around it because reading is that hobby that's different every single time you pick it up. You're in a different mood, you're in a different space. The book is different. Even upon reread, like the experience is different. So yeah, I think that's all I have for this video. Let me know your thoughts. And until next time, happy reading!